In our previous video, we taught you the 3-bet and how to use it to defend against aggressive pre-flop open raisers. As you mature as a poker player, you'll actually become one of these aggressive pre-flop raisers, and you'll find yourself getting 3-bet potentially often. So you need to start thinking about ways to defend against these 3-bets. You have two main options. Of course, you could call the 3-bet, or you could raise it. The third option would be folding, but that's simple enough that we don't have to discuss it at length. If you call, we'll break this down to when you're in position or out of position. If you're in position, the action on the flop would go one of three ways. If your opponent checks to you, you'd bet, take that opportunity, his sign of weakness, to win the pot. If he bets to you, you could either call, which is called a float. The idea behind this is that you bluff the turn. Your call on the flop is a sign of strength, so he'll be scared if you put in a big bet on the turn. If he bets to you, you could also just raise him. Also a good sign of strength in a 3-bet pot. Out of position, you have four options. You could donk bet. It's derived from the word donkey. I guess it's a sort of silly move because you weren't the pre-flop aggressor. When you just called this 3-bet, you took a passive line, so then being aggressive on the flop is a little suspicious. But sometimes it works, it's an option. And a relative of the donk bet would be a stop and go on the flop, but instead of betting small, you're actually going all in. It can be a really powerful move because your opponent, he might have wagered that he had enough equity, and maybe there's an overlay from the blinds or other players pre-flop. He had enough equity with his range against yours to call an all-in pre-flop, especially when he factors in there's a chance you're bluffing. But by the time the flop's dealt, he knows whether he's connected or not with his hand, and there's only two more streets to come, so most of the time he's going to have to fold. Just make sure that you have enough chips left in your stack to make something like a 1 to 2 size pot bet all in. If you have less than the size of the pot, you start to lose fold equity because your opponent, he's going to be able to be priced in or close to priced in on some draws, and if he has overcards, whatever the case may be. Your final two options are related. You could either check raise or check call, which we'll call the float, because you wouldn't want to just call without a plan of bluffing the turn or river. The reason these two are related is you're going to want to use them more and more if you think your opponent c-bets, continuation bets, his 3-bet pots a lot. If you're noticing a pattern that almost every time your opponent 3-bets, he'll continue on the flop, this tells you that he has to be, at least a portion of the time, continuing without a hand. So punish him for that. Check raise him or call him and then bluff the turn. These strategies, all stemming from a call, can get pretty complicated. And again, we only recommend them for an intermediate to advanced player. I mean, as an example, this call was justified in one case by bluffing the turn 2 streets later. So it takes some forethought, a lot of nuance, and a lot of understanding about your opponent and how he sees you. For a beginner player, your main defense against the 3-bet is the raise, also called the 4-bet. If you're going to go in for a 4-bet, you need to be thinking whether it's for value or whether it's a light 4-bet, meaning you're hoping that your opponent folds. With value, you need to be thinking about ranges. The range of your potential hands, the reasonable hands that you would hold with a 4-bet versus your opponent's 3-betting range, and the range that he'll call your 4-bet with. The idea here is you want your actual hand, the 2 cards you hold, to be at the very top of whatever range your opponent puts you on, because he'll call based on the 50th percentile, the median hand in your range. So as long as you have toward the top end of your range, you'll be winning. You'll have equity, more than half equity, in the pot, and it's always good to build the pot, increase its size when you're ahead. If you're light four betting light, now you got to think more about image, softer things, not what the actual hands are, but how you perceive your opponent, how he perceives you. If he thinks you're aware that his 3-bet could be light, he's going to give you less credit for your 4-bet. What you want here is for him to think you're unaware, that you don't understand the aggressive tactics of pre-flop play, and that your 4-bet is truly a good hand, and then he'll fold and you'll get away with a light 4-bet steal. With a combination of folding and raising, a beginner player can actually successfully neutralize the 3-betting advantage of a very skilled player. As long as you 4-bet correctly, 1 out of 4 3-bets, you'll actually completely take away all the 3-betting profit of your opponent. Let's go through a simple example just to show some basic math of why that's true. Let's say you're playing 1-2 no limit. And we'll just play 4 hands in a row for simplicity's sake. Let's say you raise $6, 3 times the big blind, 3 hands in a row. You're very aggressive, but every single time the same guy 3-bets you. And he must have known something because you had nothing, you had a fold. So you lost 18 chips, 3 hands in a row. His 3-bet happened to be to 18. So the 4th hand, you raise to 6 again. He 3-bets you to 18. This time you 4-bet to 54. And boy, you must have known something about his hand. He runs for the hills now. You win his 3-bet, plus 18. And your profits break even. So as long as you can correctly 4-bet 1 out of every 4 3-bets you face, you'll completely neutralize the 3-betting advantage of even the best opponents.